Hey guys and babes, what's up? It's Adam here. I can't see the guy. Hope you're all having a good day. I'm still in that movie review feel, type of mood. But mainly on one certain topic, Disney films. I know I began the reviews off by talking about Tim Burton's Batman. I've reviewed the first movie, which starred Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. I know people expected me to do the sequel to that straight away, Batman Returns, which I want to do, because it's my favourite Batman movie, but soon after that, I began to develop the feel of reviewing some Disney films. Especially the Disney films which I thought were the best of its time, still best of its day, and even today. And ones that meant really close to our hearts growing up as kids, especially through the 90s. And while I'm in that mood, I want to keep it up, and carry on reviewing all these films that held a special place in our hearts and our childhoods, and particularly the ones that were old school. So while I'm in that mood, I want to carry on. And I want to talk about one which I watched as a toddler. And again, I don't own this on DVD, Blu-ray, VHS. I used to own it on VHS back in the day. But of course, when I was a toddler, I was so addicted to all these Disney films, I just wore out the tapes. I think in the end, my mother, God bless her soul, must have threw the tape out because it was all worn and grainy. Because this was one Disney film that I really loved when I was a kid, Dumbo, which came out in the year of 1941. Now, Dumbo, you know what? At the time, I was like, this movie isn't on for very long. And I just looked it up, and it's only on for like just over an hour. So it's a very short Disney film. But I really do love Dumbo, for many reasons. Like I said, it was one of the ones that I used to watch over and over again when I was a toddler. I think I've got some photographs somewhere of me as a toddler sitting in front of the TV watching the VHS cassette of Dumbo, and my mum's actually, taking pictures of me while I'm watching Dumbo, and I'm doing flying impressions around the room as Dumbo with his big ears, flying around, whatever. But it was one that I really loved, and it was one that I constantly watched. But I will admit a lot of things about the film Dumbo. Dumbo, it's a very sad Disney film. There's a lot of bullying involved. A lot of you know scenes that get you really emotional and sad. And I think they still do that today. That was the magic about these Disney films, the fact that the way they can trigger you off with sadness just by a certain song or a certain scene. Even the scene where Mrs. Jumbo is locked up and Dumbo is going to visit her. She's singing that song, Baby of Mine. Dumbo is rocking in her trunk, and you can sense the sadness in both of their eyes. It's scenes like that. But the scenes that really trigger you off, I've got to say, the scene that really gets you upset and angry at the same time is the scene where Jumbo is being locked up by all the people in the circus because she attacked that kid who was picking on Dumbo with his ears, pulling his ears and all that kind of stuff. And she was practically just protecting her son, and she got punished for it. Dumbo gets dragged away and Jumbo gets locked up. So a very emotional, sad, depressing scene, But even when you watch them today and you're like, wow, wow, what a scene, Talk about a scene that's very emotional, very sad, and very powerful as well at the same time. This hour-long movie, it's straightforward plot. It's about the circus who have got animals and they're travelling to the next destination to perform a circus act with all the animals. One particular animal group that's famous is the elephants. You got Jumbo, who's Dumbo's mother, but before they go on the trip, there's these storks who deliver these babies to their rightful parents, the animals, to giraffes, hippopotamuses, and all these different circus animals. Well, Dumbo arrives late, and the stork delivers Dumbo to his mother, Mrs. Jumbo, during the train ride. Straight away, he seems very cute, very innocent, very sweet looking, a very adorable character. But anyway, Dumbo sneezes and his big ears are revealed. And straight away the other elephants turn into bitches and they make fun of Dumbo's ears, calling him a freak and basically making fun of Dumbo's appearance. And of course, Mrs. Jumbo, she loves her son, she's proud of her son, she doesn't judge him at all, despite him having big ears. She really doesn't care. She just really loves her son, and again, she shuts the other elephants out and just wants to be a proper loyal mother to Dumbo, and she wants to protect him, love him, and just like any other mother would, you know. We get some cute scenes where Dumbo's taking a bath and all that kind of stuff, playing with the water. So we get some very nice touching scenes about this chemistry between Dumbo and his mother. One thing about the Dumbo characters, though, it never speaks, and I like that because we don't know how Dumbo sounds. That was probably a good way. The character is good at expressing emotions, through his facial expressions. I mean, like the scenes where he's crying, he's got like the water in his eyes, the tears. They get the scenes where he smiles when he's showing signs of happiness. But he shows different emotions of when he's sad, depressed, happy, having the time of his life with Timothy the Mouse, which is another adorable character. So a lot of people relate to Dumbo. A lot of the viewers really relate to Dumbo because there's certain people, which I'm sure out there, who have been bullied in their time because of their appearance, whether it's their ears or their looks, their features, or their hobbies, or what they're into. So I'm sure everyone's been bullied at least once in their whole life, mainly at school or growing up, or people still get bullied to this day, So I think a lot of people can relate to Dumbo. So that's why I think the Dumbo character is a very unique character, because a lot of people can relate to the character, if you get what I mean. I mean, the character doesn't have to talk either, it's just relatable in so many different ways to the viewers. But again, we get that horrific scene, where the kids are making fun of Dumbo. This one freckled kid pulls on Dumbo's ears, and Jumbo spanks the kid, and the manager of the circus chains Mrs. Jumbo up. A very saddened scene. So Jumbo and Dumbo are now separated. Again, all the elephants disown Dumbo when he needs company the most because he hasn't got his mother with him. And then that's when Timothy the Mouse is introduced. And of course, Timothy instantly wants to be a friend to Dumbo. He thinks Dumbo's ears are cute, and he thinks the actions of the other elephants are out of order, so he scares them. If you want to pick on somebody, pick on me. So he basically makes fun of all the elephants. But he instantly tries to make Dumbo feel like he's got a friend. And there's even a nice scene where he helps him go and see his mother. He takes him to him. He also tries to make Dumbo feel comfortable with his ears, saying that they're wonderful and, that loads of people with big ears are famous. And he basically tries to make Dumbo try and feel like more comfortable in himself, in his appearance. Again, while all this is happening, the animals of the circus are performing tricks at the circus. Timothy thinks that Dumbo should put his big ears to use, so during the sleeping he speaks to the manager to while he's sleeping to make Dumbo the main attraction. Of course, things don't go too well that night because when Dumbo's meant to do the big leap, he trips over his ears and the whole circus becomes, chaos. It all falls to pieces and basically causes, major chaos, and the old stage shows are all into shame and basically everything gets wrecked, the whole tent comes down. So then the manager of the circus puts him on clown duty basically, and has to do a stunt where he gets hit from the burning building into the water below, and all the clowns are making fun of Dumbo also, and so Dumbo is at this point very depressed because he's missing his mom. He's ashamed of his big ears. He's being tormented and bullied a lot by all the people around him. So he feels very disowned, he feels very upset, despite having Timothy as a close friend. He's just very low, and he loses all hope in himself and he loses all his self-confidence, basically. Now, the one scene I will say about this movie that's very bizarre is got to be the drinking scene, where Timothy and Dumbo get really drunk. Because there's a scene where the clowns are drinking with champagne and the champagne falls into this water barrel and Dumbo and Timothy drink it and they hallucinate about pink elephants. Now, I don't know what to say about that scene. I remember that scene very well when I was a toddler. I even said to my mum at the time, I was like, "Mummy, what's wrong with Dumbo?" And I remember my mum saying to me at the time, she says, "I'll tell you when you get older." So that always stood in my brain. Of course, I understand what it's all about now, but when you look back at that when you're toddler, it's bound to leave some viewers, including toddlers and infants, wondering what the hell's going on. Because Dumbo's blowing all these bubbles, Timothy's saying stuff like, wow, that's really, really, really clever. Now blow a great big one. Let's need to do a square one now. So he's blowing like all these different bubbles in different shapes and sizes, and then I start to hallucinate about these pink elephants, in like a music video. I admit the animation was good, I admit that, but a scene where Dumbo and Timothy get drunk, really? I mean, why did they put that in this movie? My only guess is because they wanted to do a scene in this movie where the viewers could feel more laid back. They wasn't going to get used to all the sad scenes. They wanted to see a scene that was uplifting, maybe. They wanted to see a scene that was different from all the others, and maybe put a creative, entertaining scene on instead. So you got all these pink elephants. Some of them are like driving racing cars. Some of them look like monsters. Some of them look like candy walking around. So it's a very bizarre scene with all these pink elephants like putting on this show, like a big slideshow, like really fucking weird. I mean, the parents didn't really complain about that part too much. The part where they really complained about was the scene straight after that with the crows, saying it was a racist scene, saying that the black crows were meant to be representing Africans or something like that. It's really fucked up and really bizarre. I mean, if I would have seen this film back in the day, which I did, and rewatched it moments ago, racism would never fucking pop up in my mind. I just see these crows that at first, yeah, there was annoying characters, just like all the other characters. They made fun of Dumbo, bullied him because of his big ears. They do that big song, If Only I Could See an Elephant Fly, you know. Great song, but they're making fun of Dumbo. But then when Timothy explains that he's without his mother, and they all start feeling ashamed of themselves and start feeling sad, the crows become a major part in Dumbo's life, where they help him fly and help him get back in the main attraction in the circus again. So I don't really understand what all this criticism was about. I don't really understand where the racist point of view was all coming from, because these crows were major characters that played a big part in Dumbo's success of becoming a flying elephant. Assholes at first, but then they became really down to earth, and they respected Dumbo and they helped him in a way. The whole thing with the magic feather and all that kind of stuff. Because Dumbo now starts flying, with his ears, a flying elephant. And they put that to use because when Dumbo is going to do the stunt again at the circus and the main attraction, he uses his ears to fly around the circus tent, gets revenge on the elephants by shooting peanuts at them, and they make headlines in history, still the newspaper reports, elephants flying, blah, 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 blah. Timothy signs a Hollywood contract for Dumbo, and the film is given a really happy ending because the elephants then accept Dumbo. He's reunited again with his mother, and the ending just shows Dumbo and Mrs. Jumbo waving to the crows goodbye as they, drive away in the train ride. And that's it, because, like I said, this movie was very short. It was just over an hour long. So it wasn't a very long Disney film at all, But the scenes in this movie, like I said, were mainly sad ones. I suppose the message it's trying to give out is don't discriminate others, don't bully others. Dumbo is an adorable character that people can relate to. It's trying to make you understand the feelings of a mother, during a mother and son relationship, the chemistry. But again, the characters were lovable. There were some characters that you'd love to hate, like the other female elephants. But like I said, it had one or two good songs, like Baby of Mine, which was a nice song sung by Mrs. Jumbo. What's the ones like the Crows song? When I See an Elephant Fly, Watch Out for Mr. Stork, there's some other great songs. But again, I wish the movie was a little bit longer, but still at the same time not complaining for what we saw, because the message from this film was just so straightforward. It wasn't too complicated. The film didn't drag or anything like that. It was especially straightforward with the plot, with the bullying scenes and all that kind of stuff. And they made sure that Dumbo got a happy ending where he's reunited with his mother and becoming famous. Now, one thing I will say is a sequel was planned for this movie. From what they said back in 2001, there was going to be a sequel where Dumbo would meet his father for the first time. I don't know what to say about that, but then there was another script going around saying Dumbo was supposed to appear in his first big movie in Hollywood with Timothy as his manager, and it was going to be a movie based on flying with his ears. But again, that was another cancelled script, and they just sort of left it alone after that. I mean, like I said, this movie came out in like 1941. In fact, the official release date was October 21st of 1941 in New York City, and then released everywhere else in the US of October 31st. But I was right about the length of time. It's only on for 64 minutes. Budget, not very high, $950,000. But made $1.3 million in the United States and Canada in its time for 1941. But again, considered by critics as a very pleasant movie, very straight to the point, lovable characters, memorable scenes, and like I said, it held a close place to my heart when I was a toddler growing up. It was one of those ones I watched over and over again. And if I do start my collection of Disney movies again, like a 4K Ultra or Blu-ray, I definitely would get Dumbo. It was a nice seeing it again. You know, it brought back a lot of childhood memories, because Disney will forever hold a big place in our hearts for everybody. You know, we all travel to Disney World from all over the world. You know, because it's a big part of our lives, Disney. You know, especially these type of Disney movies and that particular era. So, do you like this movie? I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Please like, rate, and comment. And if you've got any questions. Thanks everybody, and have a nice day. Peace out.